effects. And effects, think of them like Photoshop filters. They can be put on top of your layers and to create different color modes, motion blurs, transitions, animations. There's a really tons of presets that can be really helpful. I'm going to show you where this panel is and how you can start diving into these deeper effects and presets. So let's hop over to After Effects. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all these compositions that we've made, the intro composition, which looks like this, the features composition, which looks like this, and our XD recording, and I'm going to put them all together in one composition and create these effects for transitions. So I'm going to start by making a new composition. I'm going to call this Final Without Music. We're going to do that next. I'm going to make sure it's the same size as all my compositions, which is the HD TV 720. I'm going to make sure the duration is enough, and we can double check this later, but I'm going to start with 60 seconds. This is going to be blank, and what I want to do is bring all those compositions into this composition. That's called nesting. I'm going to bring in and drag my intro down here into my timeline. I'm going to drag in my features, and I'm also going to drag in my XD recording. Next up that's really important is you want to make sure that we're going from top to bottom. So I'm having the first, what I want to show first at the top, and secondary, and then third, and as many of compositions as you have. It's going to help with our transitions. Being on the selection tool, I'm going to move these down so they kind of go one after the other. The idea here is as I play through and hit spacebar, it's going to first play my intro, it's then going to go into my features, and then my XD recording. So it kind of is butting up to each other. Now what we have to do is figure out how much longer this video really needs to be to fit in this composition. And I can see here there's like an overlap at the end, and it looks like it's going to be really slight, and it might actually work out for our benefit. So it's important that these layers overlap a little bit. And they're going to overlap because I want to have this transition start as the other one completes. So we don't want that empty space in the middle, like a black screen. We want to have one transition into the other. So I want this little bit of an overlap. So my time works out, but if I needed to, I could always go to my composition settings and make this duration longer. All right, so over here on the, let me arrow up so we can kind of see what this looks like. On the right-hand side, you'll see an effects and presets palette. In here, there's so many effects and presets that you can explore. There's so many YouTube videos that go over them. I have only scratched the surface of them because there's so many. I mean, there's blurs and sharpens, there's text effects. What we're going to use is transitions down here at the bottom. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to where the overlap begins. I'm going to zoom in so I can see it a little bit better. And I basically have here, it looks like about a 1 second transition I'm making. And I'm going to put my scrub to the beginning of the transition, be on the layer that I want the transition to occur. So I want that to be on the intro, and it's going to transition into the features. And I'm going to choose what transition I want it. And you can choose any of these. So we can see you can play around, drag and drop. So I'm going to bring over the jaws, and I'm going to drop that right on top. Another palette's going to open on the left-hand side called the Effect Controls. And you'll see right at the top there's a completion. And it's not set, the timer isn't set, the percentage isn't set. That's what we're going to do. I'm going to hit the stopwatch. And I want it to start here, so it's going to be at 0%. I'm going to scrub down to the end here. Oops. Try to be as precise as we can, so we still want to see it right there. And I'm going to change this to be 100%. And now if I scrub through, you can see that we have from 0% effect to 100%. Let's do that again for another one. So I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to start at the beginning, and I want to be on the feature. So this one's going to transition, and I'm going to do the Let's do the Venetian blind. I'm going to drop that on. I'm going to hit the stopwatch and have it start here at 0% and here go to, say about here, go to 100%. So now if I scrub through that, you can see it's like Venetian blinds, and you can play around with this. There's a ton of other effects in here that you can see. Like I can change the width of this to be larger or smaller of the blinds. I could feather the edges. I could change the angle. Same thing down here with the Jaws of Life. We could, I could change the width of the jaws. So I can make them smaller. You'll see that. The width is wider, wider. And I could feather the edges so they're a little softer if I wanted to, so they weren't so harsh. Feather them a little, see how that looks. There we go. So playing around with these can be really nice to have transitions in between. Now what I'm going to do is I want to add some music. So I'm going to close out this effects controls. There's a little close button in the top left corner. And I'm going to make one more composition. But this time, instead of just making a brand new composition, I'm going to drag my final without music into the composition button. What that does is it adds that to it. And I can now change the name of that. I'm going to say final music. So I know this is my final with music. You can see how this really helps, because if we put things on top of each other, it gets really confusing. I'm going to double click and add my music that I found off of YouTube and drag it down here below. Now this could be a below or above. And if I hit spacebar, put my sound on. Kind of groovy. So we have all our transitions here. And this would play through.